Hi, I'm Danny Halbom. Today what I'd like to talk to you about is composition and rendering using the computer. The computer is your friend, especially when you're doing compositions or just rendering, just to get a rough idea of how to lay down the painting that you want to paint. Probably the biggest hurdle that any artist has is standing there staring at a blank canvas, figuring out how they're going to get what's in their head onto that canvas, how they're going to attack it, where they're going to lay down everything and make it proportionate, make it appealing to the eye. Some of the professional artists go with what they call the golden ratio. Now the golden ratio, as you can see in here, can get kind of complex if you're trying to lay things out in that golden ratio proportion wise. And as you can see here, it's, this side divided by that one comes into this, and they get down to what they call the golden ratio. Now the interesting part about all of this, though, is this circle that has, or this swirl here, that has been created by using what they call the golden ratio. Here's an ear. It's in that circular, that golden ratio, circular angle, if you will. It shows up in plants. The same sort of golden ratio comes up. The seashell is probably one of the most showing of how this golden ratio actually works, and you can see that, how it follows that line. Even the universe, it's amazing how this golden ratio shows up in so many things in nature. A lot of artists have also used this ratio. Now here we have Da Vinci's Mona Lisa. It seems very well proportioned. You go right to the face. Everything seems to be composition-wise done correctly. Some have suggested that he's used this golden ratio again, how everything just falls into line. What I try to use is what a lot of photographers use when they're taking photographs, is what they call the thirds. Now the thirds, what it is when you take a shot or a painting, divide it into three sections, horizontally and vertically. And you can see that when you do that, there's what they call hot spots in here. And a lot of times photographers will try to get their subject matter, which in this case happens to be the goat, in or close to that 1/3 area, that 1/3 ruling. Now you can see in here too how his grass line, here's the grass. Now this grass is 1/3 up. So that, according to this ruling, would be correct. And the goat is about 1/3 over. Now here's another example. This is a painting, but it's following the 1/3 ruling, where 2/3 up is where that wall stops. You have this open area, and her face right here, the focal point, is about 1/3 over, where it starts with 2/3 up here and 1/3 there. So this artist followed the 1/3 composition rule when they designed this piece up in their head. Here's another example. Now this again is a photograph, but this photographer put the bottle at 1/3 over, and you can see the horizon line that's up here, that is set up at 2/3. So he's following the 1/3 ruling on doing this photograph. Here's another example, probably even a better one. Now that you can see the horizon line on this is 1/3 up, and the tree is moved at 1/3 over. So again, here they've also followed the 1/3 ruling. And yet here's one more photograph just to give you an idea, where they put this wall at about 1/3 up, as you can see right here, and the people's face, which is this is the focal point, if you will, of the photograph, is on that hot spot, on that 1/3 in, 1/3 down. And it actually does become appealing to your eye. And here's an example. Okay, here we have two photographs taken by the same photographer at the same place. Now if we put in our lines here, you can see that this shot over here, this is dead center. Everything is right in the middle. It's in the middle up and down, in the middle across. It's pretty much dead center on this focal point, which is this rock formation. Where here, what the photographer did was shift his camera until it fell into the 1/3 ruling, which his horizon line, all these mountains, is about 1/3 up, and this main focal point is about 1/3 in from everything. Now, if you take those lines away and you look at it, you see that even though they're the same shot, this photograph right here seems to be a little more appealing to the eye than this one that's dead on. Dead on can get very boring. Everything that's completely centered can be very boring to the eye, where when it's off just that 1/3, it gives it a little bit more interest, even though it's the same shot. A lot of times you look at this piece and you say to yourself, wow, that looks, I really like that. I don't know why, but I really like that. Or you look at the piece and you go, it's something just bothers me about it. I don't know what it is, but there's something that just doesn't seem right. And if you check it out, more times than not, it's the 1/3 ruling. One is in 1/3, which makes it more pleasant, and the other one is not in a 1/3 composition, and that doesn't make it very appealing. Now here's one of my paintings that is done up into 1/3. You can see that the dove's about 1/3. The angel here in the center is about 1/3. This is the focal point here. It's done up into the 1/3 area. Now here's another piece of mine that also was done up in 1/3. Now here's an interesting point. Like I said, when I go into making compositions for my piece, I'm aware of the 1/3 and I follow that, but I use what I call a modified 1/3. In other words, I will start off with that and then I position it to where it looks comfortable to the eye for me. And in this case, it's a modified. I used the 1/3 ruling here, but I didn't put all these plants over, say, on this side over here where it would be in the 1/3 area. I put it dead center, and yet it still is appealing to the eye. Let me take these lines off. You can see it's still very appealing because I used a modified 1/3. It still has the 1/3 ruling, but it's a modified 1/3. Now here, this is a different piece. This is not one of my renderings, but it's another artist. But you can see where they did follow the 1/3 as far as the horizon goes on here. This is pretty much right on the 1/3 line. Now their building over here, which is their main focal point, is also on a modified. It's not right onto the 1/3 area here. It's shifted over a little bit, but it does give more emphasis to the sky, which is probably where he wanted your eye to go to. Now 1/3 can also be used rather than a line like this. You can see this rock formation here is almost at a 1/3. It's probably more like a 1/4, but he didn't follow the 1/3 ruling here. But what he did do is follow 1/3 in contrast. In other words, this area here that is dark is about 1/3 of the painting, which draws your eye right to the light source, which is the subject right up in here. Here's another example. This right here, you can see about 1/3 of this area is in the darker shadow area, which gives emphasis to looking over toward the lighter area, which is in the background. And here again, you can see the 1/3 ruling where this, actually they followed it, where the gesture of the hand, which is the focal point of this piece, is pretty much on the 1/3 area right up here. And her head and face and the whole thing that you're looking at is pretty much into that 1/3 area. Also, if you look at the dark areas on here, this right here, this dark area is about 1/3 of the painting. So 1/3 ruling really does work very well for a number of things, especially if you're trying to get your composition together. And that's what I'm trying to show you here, is where do I start? How do what's going to make this appealing? If you keep the 1/3 ruling in play, and you don't have to follow it strictly, that'll give you a good starting point. It will help you get your composition together that will be the most appealing to your eye. Then what you need to know is how to get that proportionate onto the canvas once you have the composition that you're happy with. Now here, let's go back to this same piece again. Suppose that I did a pencil drawing, or I did a rendering like this. Say I did it in watercolor, real quick, a small little rendering just to see how everything would work out. And when I was done with it, I'm going, I really like this. I want to copy this exactly as it is onto my canvas. What I usually do, if I'm going to do something strictly in the exact proportions of what I've already created or have into my head on a pencil drawing or something, I will throw in some squares. Now what I do is on my canvas, before I even start painting it, I'll draw these lines in. I do halfway down the center of it, halfway down the center here, and then halfway between those two, so I get 4 boxes up horizontally, 4 boxes vertically. That gives me a good starting point, so when I look at my piece and I say, okay, if I'm drawing this, I know that in this box that's on my canvas, I'm just going to have that little section of the roof here. And this one here, it's not going to be halfway up there, but it's going to be about a little bit, about 1/3 or so is where this thing comes down. So it gives you a good place to copy exactly what you've done before onto canvas, whether it's a pencil drawing, or if you did a watercolor, or if you did something you put together on a computer and you say, oh, that's really great, now I want to paint it. This will give you a good area to go along with. Now if you want more, then just add some more lines. Here the lines are doubled, and that gives you a little bit more specific if you wanted to copy it exactly right into those boxes, and you'll be able to copy that right onto the canvas. Okay, what I want to show you now is, and to get a better eye for composition and what needs to be in and what doesn't need to be in. In this photograph here, you see it's a waterfall, and you see the vegetation, you see this tree over here. If I was going to do this and paint this tree right here, this bush, to me, it takes away from the whole piece. So what I would do is I would remove this in Photoshop. This way here you have the complete flow of the waterfall. It's in about 1/3 of the painting, so you're following the thirds, but it takes your eye into the waterfall rather than like this with the tree blocking it. So if you took this photograph, if you were going to do the painting, I would suggest take that tree out and just do the waterfall itself. Okay, another example. Here is a rock formation that somebody took. Okay, it doesn't give you a whole lot of depth. So what I would do is I would fade the background out. And I'll get into a lot more Photoshop techniques and tools and how to use them and how I use them in some following lessons. But for right now, I just want to show you what you take out. The people don't need to be here. This is a little busy for what we got going on because you got a lot of detail on the rocks. You want to show that off. You want to mute this back some to give more accent to the rocks. So therefore, I did it like this, where you're getting just the vegetation, no people back there. It's a smooth thing. You don't have a lot of clutter, and it gives more accent to the rocks itself. On this one here, again, there's a lot of confusion. You have a shadow down here that draws your eye down to that. That's distracting. Some of this rock back here is distracting. These bushes right here, you have a little bit too much going on. Your main focal point is this area right here when you're taking the shot. So what I would do is to clean it up, something like this, where if you take a look at the two, like all of this vegetation I've taken out, right here. I've taken that rock formation out of there. Take a look at it again, from there to that, and that gives more accent to this rock right here. Plus I've cloned some stuff in some of the rocks in here to get rid of that shadow that was distracting as well. And this one over here, again, there's this area right here does not need to be there. This, to me, you have a nice scene going on. It's a very peaceful scene, and this kind of disrupts it. This foreground rock and the bush, that's okay, but you don't need this going on here, whatever that is. I guess it's weeds under the water, and this bush doesn't need to be there. So what I would do on that one, I would come in and take that out. So again, we've taken out this area and we've taken this bush out. And again, this can all be done in Photoshop, and I can teach you that later on in a separate course. But this gives it, your focal point is now more into this. Plus, we've got everything into the blues to give a little bit more pop to this foreground, to bring it a little bit more forward to you. I've also colored just this rock itself, just like that. Just warm that rock up just a little bit, breaks it away from all the blues that's going there. Just to give you an idea, so that's the blues, and that's just giving a little bit more warmth to it. It makes a little bit better composition. Okay, on this last one here, we have a big rock scene. This is great. Again, we got a third of the rock, a third of the painting is in this color range. Everything is falling into place, but this bush right here is taking away from the form that's going down in here. And so what I've done is I've taken this bush out. It just makes the whole scene a lot more appealing. You get drawn directly into the painting rather than seeing a lot of little detail that you don't need. Kind of like this right here. There's a lot going on in here that you don't really need, this bush and that bush. Just taking those two simple things out makes a whole difference in the piece itself. It takes you right to the painting without any distractions. And if you wanted to, you could even fade this back a little bit lighter to give more depth from this to that section there. Okay, what I want to show you now is how to take a photograph or an image, or say a composition, something that you made up, and put it onto canvas directly. Okay, let's just say that you took this photograph. So let's say that you went out to your backyard and there was a couple of roses blooming. You took the shot and you looked at the picture and you said, "Oh, this is beautiful. I love the composition. I love the way everything has fell into this photograph. I want to paint it just the way that it is onto my canvas. But where do I start? How do I start laying this down?" Okay, the computer is really good at taking stuff and tearing it down to its basic form, if you know where to find it. And I'm going to show you how to do that with this piece right here. What I want to do first is come over here to layers, and if you don't have the layers thing in your Photoshop, you can find it by going to Windows and you go all the way down to layers, make sure that it's checked, and then just click on it and it'll pop this window up for you. Okay, go into layers and go up to this little square right up in the corner. Click on, hold that down, and you'll see where it says duplicate layer. You want to duplicate the layer. You can name it whatever you want to. Background copy is fine. Just hit OK. Now that's given me two images of the exact same thing. The reason I do that is so now I'm going to be working with this image and I don't want to disturb this. I can always go back to the original to see what the original looked like, or if I mess things up here, I can always duplicate this and start all over again. So now that we're in this second one, the background copy, we're going to take this and we're going to break it down in the computer. By doing that, we go up to the top where it says image, click, hold it down, go to adjustments, and then slide over to posterize. let go of that, and it gives you this bar here, and it shows you how it postonized that same image. It broke down the colors into its basic image form. Okay, 4, you can do it for 2 if you want, real basic, or you come up here to a higher level where it's almost like the photograph itself. You can adjust this slide to whatever is comfortable for you to start with. I would go with this one, probably about 6. 6 looks good to me. This way here breaks it down. You can lay down these colors on your canvas first, and then you can come back in and look at the original and blend this as you need to do it. But at least it gives you a good basic lay down of what colors to put down to blend in. So I would hit OK with that, and now I have a postonization. Now what I would do is take this and copy this again. Go up to the same box, duplicate layer, and now I have a copy of this one. And in this one, what we're going to do is we're going to come up here to Image, go to Adjustments, go to Hue and Saturation. And we're going to knock all of this down. I'm going to take the saturation down to where it's just black and white. And rather than losing some of the stuff here, I'm going to lighten that up just a bit. Okay, now I can see more of what I'm going to be working with right here. Okay, this gives me a pretty good idea of the line work, the basics that I'm going to be doing. So I would hit OK with that. Then take this and again go up here, duplicate that, duplicate layer, background copy 3, fine. And now from this one, I'm going to go into Filter, going down to Stylize and hit, oops, we're Stylize, then hit Find Edges. Now you can see that it's given me tons and tons of different lines, a lot of lines that I really don't need to put down the basic drawing of this, or to get this sketch put down on my canvas to start with. So from here, what I would do is go up to Image. Now you're still on the same bar, but we just did the line work. Go up to Image, Adjustments, and hit Exposure. Now exposure, you have 3 different settings. You have exposure, offset, and gamma. Gamma is giving you the overall light dark valuation, which we'll see in a minute. Offset is usually for the darker lines that are there, and the exposure brightens the brightness up to it to different degrees. So we're going to take the exposure and we're going to lighten that up. As you can see, it left a lot of the solid lines that we want in, but it lightened up some of the other areas, so it's not so confusing to our eyes seeing all these lines. And you can adjust that to wherever it looks comfortable for you. Maybe right about there looks good. Now you can take the offset and you can make the darkers even darker. That's going to get this a little cloudy, so I wouldn't go too much with that. If anything, probably a little bit lighter, just about into that area. And the gamma I would probably leave alone, but let's see what we got. Yeah, I would leave that alone. Okay, then hit OK. So now what you have is you have the pencil drawing that you want to put onto your canvas. And to see how to do that proportionate, if you wanted it exactly like this, just put in your lines. Just come up here to your line tool, get to a small thing, and just cut this in half, cut that in half, cut that, so you get 4 lines. I've already got one done up here to show you. And you can see how this broke this down into 4 separate lines. That's in half, that's in a quarter, and so forth on this side here. And what I would suggest then is to take these lines and put the line work onto your canvas. So what you're going to do basically is Photoshop has taken that photograph and broke it down into its basics. We've just seen how we've done that. Putting it onto your canvas is going to be just the opposite. So what you're going to do first, let's just get rid of these so you can see. What you're going to do first is you're going to draw in your lines on your canvas. You're going to put all these lines in, half here, half there, and then half that again, till you get these boxes in there. And you can put more boxes if you really want to get detailed, but this should probably be enough for a small painting. Okay, so you're going to draw these lines in on your canvas first. Then the next thing you're going to do is this. You're going to start putting in your line work. So you look at that one box and you go, okay, this is right about there. It's not quite halfway, and it comes in. And you just follow this along and draw all of these all the line work in. Then the next thing that you're going to do is start putting in the paint. So you're going to see, okay, I need this color, put this color in, then that color, with the line work, because we already had the line work on the canvas. So now that you have the lines in there, when you're looking at this section here, and you go, oh, okay, that's broken into, this area here, you start laying in the paint that you need till you eventually get to that, your finished piece. So basically what we're doing is we're taking the photograph, something that we really want to paint, and we're breaking it down into all of these areas. Okay, breaking it down into all of this. And then when we put it onto the canvas, we go just in reverse. We put in our line work first, then after the lines come in, then we draw this out into there. Then the next thing we do is lay down the basic colors, what needs to be in that area, and blend it all out till it looks like this. So that's what we do. And like I said, the computer breaks down everything and you go in reverse to put it back onto your canvas. Okay, one more thing before I leave you here. Let's say you wanted to copy this and you wanted it exactly like this, with the exact colors that are laid down in your photograph. You want to reproduce them onto your canvas. The best way to do this is to come up here to your eyedrop tool, click on it, select the color that you want, say this orange, click on it. Now over here you'll see two boxes, and the foreground box is the exact color that you just clicked on. So if you click on that, it shows you in here how to mix it, and there's different ways you can look at it with this view, or you've got this thing here, shows you how to mix it, so much yellow, so much of this color red. There's another way of looking at it here. There's all sorts of ways that you can find how to mix that exact color. Okay, that would be, you mix this color up here, you get this color, you have this color right here, mix it so the exact color of that, you mix the two together almost at about 50%, and you should get this orange, which is this one right here. So that shows you exactly the color that you're using. Also, what you can do is say we'll go up here to this box, up in your layers box, your top right box, click on it, get a new layer. Okay, you have layer 1. Now just go up to edit, fill, and you want, because these two colors here, this is your foreground color, and the one behind it, the black, is your background color. Now what you want to use is your foreground color. So it's going to mix a normal at 100%. It's going to mix the foreground color and cover that whole page. You hit OK, and now you've got a full page of that one color. And you can do it for any of the colors that you have in your painting. Then what I would suggest is print this out. So it's a full sheet, 8.5 by 11, whatever you're printing, of this color. Then when you go and you mix your paint, you have your palette over here, you're mixing your paint up. As you're mixing your paint, take a swipe of that paint and put it right on the piece of paper, and you can see how far you're off. A little too dark, a little too red, too little orange, until you get the exact color that is on this piece of paper, and then use that color to paint your that area of the painting. And again, you can do that in any area. Say we go over here to the green. Okay, now this is the same thing. It's showing me the exact color green. 1, 2, again, do the same thing like we have this layer right here. Orange, just come up with that green, go over to edit, go to fill, and again, it's your foreground color. That's the little box up in the front here. Fill that. Now this is the green that we're using on that one. So just get all these pieces of paper if you want to really get the exact color, and just on your palette, just mix up your paint and just put it right on that piece of paper till you get the exact color that you want. I want to show you something that's really important to artists, especially when they're using the computer, and that's the mouse versus the tablet. Now the mouse up here we all know, and we know how to manipulate that, and we use that pretty much the whole time. A lot of people are not familiar with what they call the Wacom tablet, and that's what you see here in this girl's hand. Okay, the Wacom tablet is great. Actually, it's for artists who are doing rendering on computers. Now, this is what the Wacom tablet looks like, and you see here you have all buttons, and when you get your Wacom tablet, it'll show you what all of these do, and they're really very cool. But I'm not going to get into that right here. I just want to show you how to use it, just the pen and the Wacom itself, without all the little gadgets that go with it. Now, for the most part, people set it up pretty much like this. You have your computer, then in front of that you have your keyboard, and then you have your Wacom tablet in front of that. You don't see the mouse here because you can use the pen as a mouse. It has clicks, it has double clicks, you can set all of that up, but I'm just showing you how to use it on an artistic level. Okay, for the most part, this is how you're going to be doing it. And it's just like taking a pencil and drawing with it, and it actually goes up on the screen just that way. The advantages it has is over a mouse is that it's all pressure sensitive. Now you can set it up, and I'll show you that in a little bit. You can set it up to when you put pressure with the pen onto the tablet, the face of the tablet, how much pressure you put down will make either that line go broader and wider, or it'll make it more intense. In other words, the very light touch, you just get a little bit of the line up there. The more you press down, the harder and deeper the line goes, and that's very important. That's something you can't get with the mouse. To do that, you would have to constantly get up to your opacity and change it, and then move the mouse and then change the opacity again. Where with a brush you can do it in just one stroke, and I'll show you that in a little bit. All right, here's your pen. As you can see, it has a button on the back, and then it has a little click point on the side of the pen itself. And again, these you can have like double clicks and everything, just like a mouse does. I don't use those. When I pick up my pen, it's usually just for drawing on the computer. Well, you can set it up that way. Now here's some examples that I wanted to show you with this. You can see the ones on the right over here, and that shows you different things that you can do with the pen, and this is all with the same brush. It's just sensitive how much you put pressure on your pad. So you can get, the thinner lines, you can get the thicker lines by just pressing a little bit harder. The one in the red shows you perfectly. And I think it even says same brush. It's the same brush, but the light pressure, you get a thin line. When you press down heavier, you get a heavier line. The one in the purple up there shows you how you can go from very light touch to, so you're just barely spraying it, almost like an airbrush, very light, and the harder you press down on it, the more you go from left to right. On this illustration here, you can see how it's getting thicker and thicker, full of paint. And the one on the right just shows you, again, a little bit of pressure gives you this fine point, and as you keep putting more pressure, it gets thicker, and then you'll release. You don't put so much pressure and it goes back down to thin again. So this all shows you exactly how to use it. Let's just say, for an example, that I want to take out something, say on this part here. Okay, now here's your brush tools for that pen. And if you don't have this box open on your browser, just go up here to Window, go all the way down to Brush, and then when you let go of it, it'll pop this window up here. And with this window now, we have brush tips. So if you click on that, you can see you can adjust the size. Right now, the circle that you see there, that's the size of the brush that I would be using. So if I press down on it, it'll be about that size right there that you see. And if I come down with a little bit smaller, and I press again, see it's a smaller brush that I'm using. So you can adjust the size to whatever size that you want up here on the size bar. The hardness is how hard, okay, like let's get a bigger example. If I take and I just come up here and pressurize it, you can see how it's blended very smoothly around the outside. That's because my hardness is at 0. But if I take that and put it at 6 and do the same thing, you can see now that it's more like little circles. It's a harder edge. It's not that smooth, fuzzy edge like you're seeing up here. Now, the difference with this, the two I use is transfer, which is what I've been using, and also there's shape dynamics. Now, the shape dynamics, you can see it says under pen pressure, so that's what's going to give you the pressure. That's what gives you this, say this line here, where you start off with a very small line. The more you press down, the wider your line gets, and the more you let up on it, the smaller it goes back down again. I'll give you an example of that here. Let's start out with a small one, then we press harder, and then we just go down to a real small line again. So this is all one brush, all one stroke, and it depends on the pressure that I use what I get here. Alright, let's get all this. And even down on the bottom here, it shows you what you're getting. Now, what I have is with the tip shape, is I have this on very soft. If I went and made that harder, you can see now how it's changed down here to where it's a hard edge all the way across. If I went all the way up here, it would be the same hardness all the way down. Where if I have it on a softer edge, you can see where as I put more pressure, I'm going to get more blur up here. This one down here, same thing. As I start off, it can be very light. As I put more pressure, I'm going to get darker, and then as I go release, it's going to get lighter pressure again. And let's just say that we're going to take this out. Now, here's the two differences. I go to transfer, which is giving me more of an airbrush feel. It's with pen pressure. I click on here for my shape. Let's say I'm going to go with yeah, that's probably a good start up here. Okay, so I have transfer, which is more like airbrush. This is going to give you a hard line. That's going to give you a soft line. So with transfer, the sides of the brush is what you see here, and the hardness is real soft. So now if I'm going to take this out, let's just change this to white. I'm going to take this out. You can see how it's like an airbrush kind of, it'll just take it out real smooth all the way across the board there. Okay, it's real smooth. And the more I press down, the more it's going to take out. Okay, if I go to the hard shapes, take transfer off, go to hard shapes, change this, let's go a little bit smaller because it's going to take out a lot. And then I can go with a hard edge on that. Now, if I just do a little bit, it'll take out just a thin line. If I go press down heavier, it'll take down a heavier line. And of course, it'll take down even a heavier line still. So it depends on how you want to take out. If you've got something and you want to just take out, right along the edge and you want it nice and clean, then go with your shape dynamics, get it to the hardness that you want, change the size, however big you want to use your pen size, and you can take that edge right out. Where if you want something softer, like you want to just like a mist, like you just wanted to fade from one area to another area, then go down to transfer, which is more like an airbrush, and go to your pen shape and take that all the way down, softness to smooth, and it'll give you the smooth transition to where now it'll just be as smooth as you want as far as taking it out, so it fades from one area to the other rather than a hard line like that. what I want to show you is how Photoshop can handle this and make a composition for you, just to give you a basics to go by, and then of course you have to go and paint it, but at least this will give you a good idea of where to start from. So in this one here, I have a few things. I have a water beach photograph that I got. I have a shell that I picked up here. Let's see, I have a seagull. I've rendered this seagull before. I've used it a couple of times, so it's clean, but it is a photograph that I took of a seagull, and I just rendered it out a little bit. And then we have a lighthouse. Actually, I've been up there many times. It's a beautiful lighthouse that's up there in Cape Elizabeth up in Maine. Okay, so let's take a look at, let's start right off with the this layer right here, which is the water. So let's take and make that the size that we want first. So we click on this layer. We have our move tool, and now let's move it down. Yeah, probably a little bit lower than that. Maybe there. And we'll just drag that up a bit. And maybe actually even spread it out. It'll be a little distorted, but that gives us a good waveform. Okay, so now we've got a wave in the foreground. Now we're going to get rid of all of this, and I'll show you how to do that. The next one is, let's take our shell. Okay, so here's our shell. And we're going to make the shell, let's see. That's a good size right there, probably. Let's leave that just about in that area there. So we're going to put this shell behind that. We want to work with the waterfront. We want the shell kind of behind it. So in Photoshop, when you have your layers, whatever is on top of the other one, that gets thrown on top of your picture. Like right now, the shell is in front of the water, so you see it laid out on top of it. I want to put it in the back because I'm going to start getting rid of some of the sky and see how this plays into that. So take our shell, click on it, and drag it down below the layer. Now you see the shell is behind the water. So now let's just leave this for right now. I'll tell you what, why don't we clean this up? Let's go and take the water out and get onto the shell, and let's get rid of all of this background layer that we don't need. Now there's a few ways that you can do this. The best way, and when you're removing anything, is what is known as masking. And the reason for that is, if I just come in like this right here is an eraser tool, and if I take this eraser tool and start erasing, it will be gone. But if I wanted to, say I came in too close here and I wanted to put it back in later on, I wouldn't be able to do it, not unless I went into the history and went all the way back to where I first started. So the best way to do this is you come down here to your bottom, make sure you're on the layer that you want, which is the shell. Go down to this thing which looks like a circle in a box, and what that is that gives you a mask. Now right now the mask is all white, which means that everything in this shot, this whole photograph, you will see everything. Now if I take something like here, this is our colors. If I go and switch that to black, which is in my foreground now, and grab that tool, as long as I'm on the mask itself, not on the image. See the little box around the image? Okay, that means that I'm going to be working on the image itself. I want to work on the mask, so I click here, and now that frame is around the mask. Okay, so I've got the mask, I'm on the shell, and I have black here. Now black will take out whatever I don't want. See, I'm starting to take out all of this area here. But at any point, and you can see on your mask here, that black is the area I just took out. But if I want to come back to it and add that back in, I just switch this over to white. Now white is in the foreground. Now I'll be painting with white. When I'm in the layer mask, the white will bring that image back in again. So that's why masking is great because I can take out stuff. If I get too much out, I can always come back in and put it back in because I have a mask for it. It's not wiped out completely as the eraser tool would be. Okay, so let's go with that, and let's start for real quick. We'll go up here to the magic wand. Okay, what the magic wand does is when you click on something, it looks at all the pixels that you've clicked on. Like this would be a gray. It would look at all the gray pixels and just pick those out. Like here, let's click on it. Okay, now see, it's got into this area and into that area. We don't want that. What we want is just this gray, so it grabbed too much of that stuff. So click on this, and up on the top you see a thing called tolerance. That is how much the width of the pixels or the variation of the color you're going to grab. Right now 44 is pretty high. If we cut it down to, say, I don't know, 24, and now we click on it, now it's just grabbing this area right here. It's not grabbing up all the way into here. So now that we grab that, come back in, because we're on here, we want to fill this with black. So we take our paintbrush and just start coloring the black. Whoops, I got transfer. I want solid. So now we come in here with the black, take care of all of that, and now that's all gone. Now we click on the magic wand again. We want a different shade. Grab this shade here. Okay, go back in here. Again, we're on black, we're on our mask, and now we just take out that area. And now we have our shell. So now we have this, and we have the shell on here. Okay, so now let's go to the this part right here, the water part. Okay, we're going to go and click on the water part, and again we're going to make a mask because we may want to put some of that back in. We're not sure. All right, let's click on that, and now let's just roughly come in here. Let's grab this and the black again. Anything we take out will be taken out with the black on the mask. But instead of having a hard line, we're going to go with transfer. Okay, what transfer does is with the hard shape, when you have just a hard shape, and I'm talking about with your Wacom pen. If you use a mouse, you can do it with a mouse, but it's really tricky. You have to keep playing with how much opacity. Like right now on my mouse I have 100% opacity, so what I move will take 100% out. I can go with, say, 30%, and then when I do that it takes 30% out. The more I keep going, I'll get more of it out. But if I go with the pen tool with Wacom, it's the pen pressure. The more I push down on this here, the more I push down, because this is Shape Dynamics. If I have it clicked on this, it says pen pressure right here. The more I push down on my, let's get a big thing you can see. Okay. With pen pressure on here, the more that I push down, the bigger that will be. So if I just do a little bit, see, I've only got a little line in that big circle, but if I press down really hard, now I'm getting a bigger and bigger section. So this is really good, like for what we just did. We wanted a nice clean edge. We didn't want to blur it. Now we want to kind of blur this back. We want to get rid of it, but we want to keep some of that foam in there. So instead of going with the hard edge on this, I'm going to go with transfer. Now with transfer, you have pen pressure, but now it's going to be the full width of that circle you see. So if I have a, let's go back up here. If I got a big circle, I'll probably use something around that area. Okay. With the big circle, it will take out everything that's within that circle. That's how big my brush is. But because it's on transfer and pen pressure, it depends on how hard I push on the Wacom tablet. So if I just push a little bit, see, it's just taking a little bit out, a little bit at a time. Okay, if I press real hard, then it gets rid of everything. So it's a matter of, this one here is a matter of pressure for your Wacom tablet, and this one is a matter of the line width. So we're going to go with pressure because we want to leave some of this foam up in front of this, but we want to get rid of the sky. So I might go down just a little bit less. Okay, let's start taking that out and let's see where we're at. Oh, and hardness. Right now it's on hard, so you can see that it's hard lines. If I take this down to the softest, which this is the softest at 0, this is the hardest, it's called a hardness thing. The hardness would be like 95 or 100. We want to go the softest, so it gives us like an airbrush feel. Okay, so if I come up here now with the airbrush feel, you can see how it's just barely getting rid of all of it. It's not like a hard line. So now we just get rid of that background. And again, it's because we're using black and we're on the mask that we're getting rid of the background, but we're keeping our foreground going here. Let's get rid of all of that. Okay, now we have a shell going. And in this area here, we're just going to try to keep as much of this wave breaking as possible. We're probably not going to keep the whole thing, but we want to keep as much as possible until we actually know how much we want to cut off. So again, get rid of the hard edge up here, and then just a little bit, just keep taking a little bit out. Now over here, we didn't get that. Let's get rid of that stuff. Okay, so now we've got like a wave crashing in front of the shell. What I want to do though is, instead of having a hard line here, let's click that off. I want some of this shell popping through the wave. So in order to do that, I come back here and I go onto the wave part here, that's what I'm going to get rid of, onto the mask and onto black again. And also with my Wacom tablet, I want to be on transfer because I want to take a little at a time out, almost like an airbrush taking it out. And our size, good, it's probably a good size, so leave it right where it's at. And then we just come in and we just start taking some of this out. Now you can see some of the shell coming back in. And we want it to look like, just like it's becoming part of the water, if you will. Okay, now that's the bottom part of the shell, and I don't want it to be a hard line like that. So what I did was I took out too much of the water part up here. Let's just get rid of that a little bit more. So I want more of the water coming into the shell area. So what I do now is I switch it from black to white, and I'm still on the masking, and now I'll start putting some of the water back in because I'm on white. So now I just hit this area. See, now the water's starting to come back in here, and that's just what I want. Okay, so now what we're looking at is we're saying that the shell is starting to interact with the wave. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take a little bit more of this out to get this circle going into this circular part here. I think will look really cool. See what it looks like. Okay, we're on the water, on the mask. Let's go and take a little bit more, get a little bit more shell going there. There we go. Okay, now it's acting right in with the whole wave. You got a nice flow going here from the wave crashing over, coming up around here. You have this coming down, the wave going up that way. It's a nice contrast that's going on here. All right, the next thing is let's take a look at let's do the lighthouse next. Okay, now here's the lighthouse. Like I said, I took this photograph. Took this photograph a long time ago. Let's get it proportionate. So now we're going to go click on the lighthouse, and let's make that lighthouse. Let's see, I'll put it up about here. Let's make it just a little bit bigger. Grab too much. And let's just make that. We'll just shove that over just a bit. Right about there is probably good. Okay, now with this, what I want to do is, because we have so much detail going on in here, and we're using a blue background anyhow, and this is a purple, it's kind of a bluish tint. But rather than messing with trying to get into all these little areas as far as taking things out, let's just take this and tint this to where this color is almost that color right there. So when we start taking some of this out, it saves us from going right into the lighthouse. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so we take this. Now let's go into image, adjustments, and let's go with let's go hue and saturation. Okay, as we change the hue on this, it'll take it from that purple to practically anything we want, back into the reds or into the greens. We want to get more into the blues, which that's too green. That's probably getting there. If you look at this color and that, maybe just a little bit more purple. Okay, and we want to lighten that up just a bit. That's looking pretty good. Now let's go into curves. Now curves, I can adjust the darkness or the lightness or bend the middle part of it. This is kind of the middle. That's the real dark, that's the real light. This is kind of the middle. So what I want to do is I want to leave the whites alone, leave the blacks alone, which is these 2 points here. That's white, that's black. We're going to leave those alone, but we're going to manipulate the midtone, which is the midtone here. It's not black and it's not white. So we're going to take that, click on the middle, and we're going to drag it up just a little bit. And you can see how that's starting to change to where it's getting closer to the actual look up here. Actually, it's a little too light at this point. We're going to take that and drop that back down just a bit. Somewhere right about in there. It's hard to judge because there's actually a graduation going on in here. But we'll hit that and say that's okay with that. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I want this to blend in with the background. So I'm going to go down here, get a mask, click on my mask, come back over just like we did before. We're in black, we're going to take out, and I'm going to do it with the transfer, which is right here, because I want this to be a softer edge. I don't want a sharp edge like right along the edge here. I may come in with this on parts up here. We'll have to see how it goes. But right now I want to transfer. I want a soft edge I'm taking away, like airbrushing it out. And my size is probably pretty good for starting out. And now we just come in here and just start taking this out. And again, we don't have to be too exact because this is really just a comp for us to, if we were going to do it, to put the put it on canvas. Okay, do it here. So now we're going to get rid of this because we want that wave to be in front of the lighthouse. but we're not sure just how much of the lighthouse we're going to take out. So let's see where our thing, let's just really get rid of this. Let's see where our wave is. Okay, there's the wave coming back there. Okay, now I get to see what I'm doing. Now, I think I want to bring more of the lighthouse down into this section and leave this kind of splashing in front of the lighthouse. So, since I took too much out, I'm going to come back and start putting back in. I have to change my color from black to white. I hit this little thing here, and now my white is in the foreground. So now it'll start bringing the lighthouse back in. Okay. It's looking pretty good. I think I'm going to get rid of some of this white around here, so let's go to the wave and click on that mask right there. Go back to black because I want to take out some of that, and I may go with a little smaller because I want a little more refined. And again, I'm on the transfer, so it's pen pressure. If I just barely hit it, it'll just barely take things out, as you can see right there. I just wanted to get rid of some of that white. It's just bothering me. And I may even open this up just a bit here. Alright. It's looking pretty good. And that's okay, I can see, so that's a little dark. So let me come back in with, this is the lighthouse. Come in here, I want to lighten this up just a little bit. So I come in with my paintbrush and I want to go white because I want to start putting more of the lighthouse in. So now as I'm hitting this, it brightens that up just a bit. And there we go. Okay, so that's looking pretty decent. Now the next thing that we want to put in is the seagull. So we'll take this seagull here, and right now it doesn't seem to fit in with the rest of the piece. Everything is going pretty good. Let me take that seagull out again. Everything is going pretty good. I may take this shell. Let's do that right now, as a matter of fact. Let's take this shell and let's blue it down just a little bit more. It's a little too orangey for me. I want a little bit of that color in because we got some color variation going here, but I don't want that much orange going in. So let's go to Image, Adjustments, and Photo Filter. Now with this, you can see that it warmed up the whole day, and here's a preview you can click on. That was before and after, so it warmed it really up. I want to go just the opposite. So let's go with Cooling Filter, which is blues. See, now that looks a little better. There's another shade of blue. That's a little hard. I'm thinking either the first one or the third one. Let's go with that one. Now the density is how much of this blue I throw on here. And I can change this at any point. I can click on this, and instead of that blue, I can get more of, this blue, or I can come up here and actually pick the blue that I want, like that right there. And let's see, that would be somewhere around in here, about like that. Now, the more that I fill this up with it, the more it'll be just like the background that's there. And I don't want that. It's a little too blue. I want some of that warmth in there. I just don't want quite as much. So let's go with just about there. And again, here's the preview. That's what we had before we started this, and now with the filter, it'll look like this. And it's a little more pleasant, maybe just a little less density. So that was before, and now we have this, which is falling pretty much in line with this. We're still staying in the blue-green hue. So I hit OK. Now we've got that. Okay, now let's go to the seagull and see how the seagull, there's a lot of greens in here that just doesn't fit. So again, we can do the same thing with the seagull. Is come up here to the seagull, make sure you got that clicked, image, adjustments, and let's see, photo filter. Okay, now that warmed it up. That's not what we want. We want to cool it down, but we may choose a different cooling because that's going to be a little too blue, as is that. You may want to go with more of almost a purple, almost this kind of color here. So let's see, violet might be good. Yeah, see, violet fits a little bit better in with that. And again, we can click on this and we can change this anywhere that we want. Let's slide this down a little bit on the cooler side. That looks pretty decent. And now we can change the variation of how much we want to cool that. So this right here, if we keep it in with just a little bit more of this purple going on, it starts tying in with the purplish hue that we have down in this area of the wave, and it falls in. There's a lot of purples and stuff in here, so this more ties it right in with what we want. So we're going to say okay with that. And let's see, we can take this seagull, let's bring it up a little bit. Composition wise, let's put it, we don't want it, that doesn't look good. It looks about the best the way I had it before. Okay, so I'll leave that about like that. And now that I'm looking at this with all the colors, this lighthouse needs to be a little bluer too to fade in with that background. Not much, just a tad. So let's go back up to the image. Now you don't want to go to the mask because if we go into filters in the mask, it'll change what's in the mask. We want to change the image itself, change that color. So make sure you have the image clicked, then back up here to image size, adjustment, down to photo filters. Now actually that's warming it up. I may have been wrong. The blue seems to kill it more with the warmth. Seems to give it a little bit more depth in here since we've got so much warmth on this side here. Yeah, I'm liking the warmth better than the cool. I was wrong. Okay, let's see a different kind of warming filter. Got that one. That's another one. I'm going to keep it like that. Okay, so the warmth is actually what pulls that in. So now they've got a pretty good balanced deal here. And again, we can manipulate, we can move the seagull around, we can do all sorts of stuff, this is what's great about the computer. You see, if you were painting this and you started throwing everything in and it's like, oh, the lighthouse needs to be shifted just a little bit to the right, well, you've got to repaint the whole thing now. See, this way here, if you take what you're wanting and you throw it down on the computer, you can move it around to where everything looks balanced, everything looks just the way you want it, and then go over and paint it, and you know what you're painting from. So that's why using a computer is great. Saves you a lot of time and a lot of effort. Okay, so say we like everything that's going on here, then what we do is just come in and start making our squares. So I would take the squares like this. You know, again, this is just half of the canvas, that's half of the canvas, then cut it in half again so you get 4 sections. Or if you want, like I said, you can even go more if you wanted it even more refined. But draw these lines on your canvas, okay? And then once you print this out on your printer or whatever it is so that you have a shot of what you're going to be working from, you can see, you know, where everything is at. You can see that, you know, okay, this It's just a little bit up here. This is about halfway, just a little bit less than half. It curves, and you can draw this exactly proportionate to the composition you just made up. And even the seagull here, you can see the feet didn't go down halfway. It's about almost half of this block, just a little bit lower. So you can get all your proportions just right. And like I say, if you want to, you can come in here, flatten this whole thing down like that. And then let's make a copy of that. And come back in and see what it looks like with finding the edges. See, now you've got a line drawing of it. Okay, so now you can come in and you can actually draw the lines in here in all those sections on your canvas. You have your lines, you just draw all your lines in, and then once you get all the lines drawn up, then you paint it because you've already got it lined up in there. So anyhow, this is just to show you how to use the computer in putting together a comp, how easily it can be. If you can, get a Wacom tablet. It's so much easier than a mouse.